I wrote and published a book about the 7 stages of decision making. But when you are in a decision, when it's real life and you're trying to make a decision that's more aligned with what you genuinely desire, to be right on the edge of taking that leap of faith and doing something you know in your gut is right but feels scary in the moment. Sometimes it feels like your world is collapsing in on itself. Sometimes it feels like this is the one decision, the most important one you will ever make in your life, and so there's a ton of pressure to get it right. I get what it's like to actually be in the decision-making process because I have experienced it multiple times and will continue to experience these stages. Every time I do, I experience them with wide open eyes, wide open heart, because I want to show up for you and for all of my clients in an authentic way. Surprise, surprise. The point of today's video is to step outside of the practices and the philosophical side of this all and really talk about the real deal. What is this actually like to be in each of these stages? So I will be using some of my own personal examples, like quitting multiple misaligned jobs in order to start my business, that PhD to master's switch that I've talked about a few times on this channel, leaving a relationship, and eventually saying yes to my life partner, deciding to invest my personal savings into myself and into my business. In my experience, there are 3 distinct stages you will find yourself in when it comes to making one of these decisions. And it is really helpful to know which stage you're in so you can normalize your experience and get practical, specific tools that will help you get through your specific stage and start living and experiencing that dream life that you were making these decisions for in the first place. Let's dive into stage 1. The first stage can be summarized by the phrase, life is fine. This is the stage of denial, or at least attempted denial. The conversations we have in our head that assumes or we blatantly try to justify that there's nothing wrong here, there's nothing to fix. With this stage, I'm thinking specifically of my decision to quit misaligned work. These jobs I held and got into because it felt like the right, smart thing to do, but I knew in my gut they weren't quite aligned with the vision and the life I was wanting to build. Yet, when I was in them, I was trying my hardest to deny the misalignment. So what this looks like in reality, if you are in this stage and when I am in this stage, is staying the course. Just continuing to check the boxes, to show up for your day, to keep the status quo, and to not change. What's missing in this stage is any space for you, any space for intention and for honest reflection. In fact, in this stage, those are actively being pushed away. This keeps us stuck. This keeps us frustrated because we haven't created the space to understand what's going on. There's no space to feel the feeling, let alone fix it. This stage looked like me doing literal handstands on my wall because I was so frustrated with the work I was trying to force myself to do. I wasn't passionate about it. I kept procrastinating with it and just had so much angst and energy, and I didn't understand what was going on or why I was feeling that way. I thought I just had a time management problem, which links back to what I talked about in last week's video. This also looked like me complaining to friends and to family about the work I was doing. But because I wasn't really able to be honest with this misalignment, I would complain in a sarcastic way, which didn't allow for any movement or any change. Essentially, it was just unproductive venting. And here's the deal. If you stay in this stage, if you don't allow yourself to move through it, it can lead to some pretty big and not so great outcomes. Physical, mental illness, unleashed anger and frustration at the wrong people in the wrong circumstances at inopportune times, exhaustion and burnout. And again, all of that is amplified and feels even more frustrating because there wasn't the space to understand the root cause of why any of that is happening in the first place. So what's the cure? What's the cure of working through this stage? Again, when I think of when I made those decisions to quit misaligned work, it was giving a little bit of space at a time so it didn't totally freak me out to start to get curious about what I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. To even just admit that I wasn't happy with this job or with this specific work, and to start to imagine, even if just a little bit, that there could be an alternative choice. There could be a different option, a different direction I could take instead of continuing to force myself into this pattern. If you have read or want to read my book, Ready Enough, you can also work through this stage by using the practices outlined in the first 2 steps of the decision-making process, creating space and experiencing clarity. The second stage when making an authentic decision, what it's really like to walk through this process, is knowing what you want, but being too afraid to do anything about it. So at this stage, I'm specifically thinking about my decision to invest in myself. What it looks like to be in this stage is to have these desires, to have these wants, but feeling resistance toward them. So you let fear win. You maintain limiting beliefs that prevent you from going toward your desires. You create all the excuses in the world for why you can't have these desires. And what this looks like is creating a double life for yourself. So back to my example, there was this inner desire, this inner knowing that I wanted to buy that cute shirt or that I wanted to invest in a coach, but I wasn't letting myself. And therefore I was trying to show up as if I didn't want those things. I was trying to mold myself into an existence where those things weren't what I desire. But inside, all along, I still wanted them. And the outcome of not working through this stage is feeling angry or that jealousy at others. Also not allowing yourself to go all in, which leads to disappointment because life isn't what you know it could be, what you're really genuinely wanting it to be, and what you imagine it to be. You may experience a lack of self-trust and a lack of self-confidence because you're not following through with what you know you're wanting. Resentment builds, and you may assume that it isn't possible for you to experience and live your dream life because you may be stuck in this stage of not letting yourself have it, not letting yourself problem solve so that you can reach your full potential, so that you can experience these things that you're wanting to experience. Again, my own example of investing in myself in big and small ways. I had a really eye-opening conversation with one of my best friends who shared with me that she had felt some judgment from me in the past. And I admitted that that judgment was there. She wasn't wrong. I was judging her because I wasn't letting myself experience what I wanted. And so that longing and that dissatisfaction that I wasn't able to have these things was coming out through judgment, which I, of course, don't want to or never intended to do, but that's how it was being funneled out because I couldn't have those things, or I told myself I couldn't have those things. And so anyone else who could have those things, I had some feelings about. And that's a great reminder that all of this authentic decision making, they don't just impact your life, they definitely impact the lives of everyone else around you. So what is the cure to walk through this stage? It's to admit what you want, and that's a huge starting point. Just write out or say it to yourself or feel it. Yeah, I'm really wanting this thing. And then to face and start working through the fears if they're coming up about what it means for you, for your life, for your beliefs, if you were to pursue this thing. And another step is to start acting as if this new reality is already true. So for my investment story, I started doing this in small ways. Buying a candle, buying one shirt that I was really called for. And it's not really these external things that matter, but it's rather the motivation and the intention behind those actions. So I was doing it as an example that I am worth investing in myself, that I can do these things just for me, just for the joy of it. It was breaking down those fears and those judgments that it was wrong or bad to spend on myself. If you are reading Ready Enough, you can also implement the practices that I outline in steps 3 and 4, admitting your desire and taking action. Which leads us to the third stage, to stay the course. Because it is one thing to make a decision, it's another to enact that, and it's a third and separate experience to trust the journey on the other side of that decision. So the ideal here is to step into fully this new decision that you've made, to practice new beliefs and see with a new perspective, expanding your view of what's possible and tuning into your version of your life, rather than reverting back to what life used to be or what someone else imagined for your life. But the real of this stage can look like questioning your decision, feeling a little uncomfortable in uncertainty because this is a new place and so it's inevitably a little unknown. It's noticing that some people may still be giving you funny looks or be questioning if you made the right choice because they don't see, and maybe even you don't see, the success and the potential that you knew was there when you made this decision in the first place. This stage means means riding the waves and remembering that there's going to be a shit sandwich no matter which direction you choose, no matter what decision you make. If you don't continue through this stage, what that looks like is reaching for comfortable, which is often going back on your decision, potentially even going back to something that you knew and you know is not in alignment with what is best for you and what you imagine for your life, but at least it's comfortable because you know the shit sandwich that you eat there, you know the challenges that you face there, and that adds this level of comfort for you to lean on and fall back to. So what is the cure for working through this season of trusting, of staying in your decision long enough to see the outcomes and the potential that you knew in your gut when you made the decision is worth the discomfort? In my experience, it is building the best, most supportive support system around you that you can. Figuring out who your people are that can help you and hold your hand when it gets hard or when you start to doubt this process. And potentially, this is even yourself. Writing letters to yourself when you're feeling confident so that when you do feel doubt or when you do face a challenge, you can lean back on those letters of why this is worth it and why you do feel confident at the end of the day that you at least want to give this a fair shot. And along those same lines, getting through this stage is also about celebrating and savoring the good moments when you come upon them. This is a huge part of the process and a huge helpful tip for you to persevere through whatever is thrown your way by savoring and celebrating the good moments. The personal example I'm thinking of when I share this stage 3, trusting the journey, staying in it long enough to see the outcomes, is my business. My business that I've now had for 4 years, coming up here in September of 2022, because there are certainly, still to this day, ups and downs. It hasn't been what I think I subconsciously thought a long time ago, one decision and then lead to a slow growth of success. What it actually is some really great days, some really great months, and some months and days where I'm totally doubting my decision to be completely on my own. I have looked at job boards, I have looked at companies that I really like and I enjoy their mission and considered what it would be like to join their team and then have this sustainable, for sure, paycheck that comes in every other week, a more structured workday, employees, built-in friends that I don't have as a solopreneur. And when I am centered, when I re-ground in my truth, in my desires, and going back to when I made this decision in the first place, I remember that all of those shiny objects, all of those things that sure would be nice for a moment, aren't what I'm actually going for with my version of success, the bigger vision that I imagined when I made the leap to start my business. So just like I outlined here, I savor the good moments when I sign a new client, when I get an opportunity that is exactly what I've always imagined for myself and how I can show up and serve in the biggest, best way possible. And when there are hard days or hard seasons, I do my best to remember this is all part of it. And even if I chose one of these shiny objects, one of these alternative things that would alleviate certain pressures or stresses I may be feeling in business, those too would provide their own stresses and their own challenges. And so I go back to my grounded, centered place and remember, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing these specific challenges because they are worth for me these specific payoffs that really only come through this decision and this pathway to be a business owner and to do what I love, which is to coach and to lead and to train with positive psych and this passion for authentic decision making. And there you have it, the 3 stages to summarize this decision-making process and what it's really like when you are in the midst of making a bold, authentic decision that helps you to create your greatest potential and better life. As promised, I mentioned some of my personal stories as I walked through these stages to really break down what it's actually like to be in the midst of making one of these decisions. A lot of videos on this channel are trainings and practices that you can apply into your life to work through the decision-making process. But if any of those stories or anything I mentioned piqued your interest, comment below and I'm happy to expand upon them because I think it's really important and helpful when we can hear someone else's process, and especially someone who specializes in decision-making, really my thought process and my experience going through any of these specific decisions. So what's next for you? I invite you to identify what stage you are in in the decision-making process. That first stage of trying to deny that there's something a little off here, that second stage of knowing what you want but being in the midst of facing those fears or overcoming those fears to implement the change that you desire, or that final phase of trusting the journey and sticking with it long enough to see the outcome that's on the other side. Once you have identified what of the 3 stages you're in, I invite you to watch the accompanying video. I think would be a great next step for you. So if you are in the first stage, watch this video to admit where you are and gain some really practical tools to help you in that process. If you're in the second stage, watch this video to clarify what you're really wanting. And if you're in that third stage, I invite you to follow some journal prompts about trusting yourself and sustaining that trust as you implement your decision. And if you're wanting even more, you're wanting to take a step beyond watching videos, you want to actually implement this into your life and experience what it's like to have support in that process, I invite you to take advantage of an offering I have for a limited time. I'm not sure how long I'll keep this on my website, and that is a 14-day free trial of my group coaching program. You can enter right away and access 3 different wellness challenges that help you to align these areas of your life one step at a time, with my own coach-led guidance and weekly group coaching calls, so you can be surrounded by individuals who are pursuing the same authentic life and making the same bold, authentic decisions that you are. To take that next step to start your 14-day free trial, click the experience link in the description below. And that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me on another Yes and by Marin YouTube video. If you haven't already subscribed, give this video a like if you liked this style and content today, and I'll see you next Tuesday.